The red light starts to spin. The hallway turns the color of blood. A siren screams like a train. A voice on the radio shouts, "Lockdown now. Be-range. Be-range." Two heavy doors slam somewhere ahead. I feel the floor shake. A cart rolls into the wall and rattles. In the cell to my left, a man with a deep, steady voice laughs once, a short, cold sound. In the cell to my right, a different man whispers a prayer. I am standing inside the most secure prison in America, the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility in Florence, Colorado. People call it ADX. The Alcatraz of the Rockies. Inside these walls are men the world calls terrorists and cartel lords. That is who lives here. That is who is locked up here. And right now, something is wrong. A radio crackles again. Officer down? Confirm. No answer. The silence is worse than the alarm. I look at the observation window ahead. Past the glass are tiny cells like stone boxes. Each cell is a world. Each world holds one man. Some men tried to blow up cities. Some men helped run drug empires that stretched across countries. They all live behind steel and concrete now. The air smells like bleach and metal. My guide, a tall officer with gray hair and calm eyes, raises a hand to keep me still. "Don't move," he says. Doors are cycling. The light above us flips from red to white to red again. The officer looks at the ceiling camera and nods. I swallow hard. Then, from down the range, I hear a slow clap. Someone is clapping to the siren's beat. Clap, siren, clap, siren. It is a game to him. The officer squeezes his radio. Control, status. A voice comes back, "Be-range contained." The siren softens. The lights go steady. The gray-haired officer exhales. I do too. That is when the steel door behind me unlocks with a heavy click. It opens by itself. Cold air slides across my neck. And a shadow steps into the doorway. Earlier that morning, I had arrived at the front gate with a notebook, a pencil, and a head full of questions. My job was simple. I was here to learn. Who is locked up in ADX Florence, and what does life look like behind the doors? I knew this was not a normal prison. This is where the government sends the hardest cases. Men who planned attacks. Men who ran violent gangs. Men who commanded cartel money and soldiers like chess pieces. At ADX, doors do not swing. They slide. Meals do not come on trays pushed by hand. They come through slots. Voices come through steel and glass. Every move is planned. The sun was clean and bright, but the place felt cold. The fence looked endless. Razor wire curled like metal snakes. The gate buzzed and let me in. Officers checked my ID 3 different times. I walked through a metal detector. I dropped my notebook. My pencil rolled toward a line of boots. A young officer picked it up and smiled. "First time?" he asked. "First time," I said. He led me to a briefing room. A photo on the wall showed the mountains in winter. The caption said, "If you can see freedom, you can respect the wall." I did not understand the line then. I would understand it later. We started in a control room where screens watched every hallway. The gray-haired officer, his name was Mason, pointed to a map with colored lines. "Every door speaks to another door," he said. "No two open in a way that lets people meet unless we say so. It is chess, not checkers." He tapped the map again. "Here is general population. Here is step down. Here is medical. And here," he pointed to a thick cluster of lines, "is the special range. That is where we keep the men the public thinks about when they hear ADX." I tried to imagine the lives behind those lines. Mason kept talking in a calm, almost gentle voice. "Your audience wants names," he said. "They want big labels. Terrorist. Cartel boss. You can say those labels here. We follow the law. These men were tried. They were convicted. They are not here by rumor. But remember this, inside the wall, labels become numbers and rules. The story is not just who they were. It is what this place does to extreme danger, how it makes the loudest storms turn into quiet, controlled weather." We walked the first range. On my left, a small window sat in each door. I could see only a sliver inside. A bed. A shelf. A sink. A man's hand on a book. On my right, the wall was bare. A camera hung like a dark eye from the ceiling. How much time do they spend in the cell? I asked. Most of the day, Mason said. They have time out alone. A shower alone. A small yard alone. Some men earn more. Some men move less. It depends on behavior and the step they are on. He stopped at a door. This man used to move tons of drugs for a cartel. He fed a machine that spread across borders. Now he eats alone and reads alone and exercises alone. That is the point. The man inside stared at the TV on his wall. A prison channel played a calm program about nature. In the next cell, the prisoner had no TV on. He sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. Is he sleeping? I asked. He is listening, Mason said. To what? To his own thoughts. Mason's answer was flat but not mean. I felt a chill. I wrote a note. The loudest place is the inside of your head. We passed a door where the man inside had taped papers to the window. He likes to write, Mason said. He writes letters to no one. He writes plans he will never carry out. He writes what he wants to eat. He writes his dreams. He is serving life. The paper helps. In another cell, a man did slow push-ups, the kind you do when you have nowhere to be. He stopped and looked at us. His eyes were sharp. He touched his chest with his fist once, then went back to the floor. Are there men here for terror crimes? I asked. Yes, Mason said. Men who made bombs or tried to. Men who trained for violence. Men who followed violent ideas. They live under the same rules as the cartel men. The wall does not care what flag they waved. The wall cares what they can still do if we are not careful. He looked at me then as if to make sure I heard him. We are very careful. We reached a heavy door with a red line on the floor. Cross only when I tell you, Mason said. He radioed control. Range move 2. A light turned green. The door slid open with a thick breath of air. We stepped into a corridor with fewer sounds and more cameras. This is where the profile gets sharper, Mason said. Think of men who planned to shake whole cities. Think of men who forced whole towns to obey their rules. Now imagine all of that force pressed into one small room. That is this range. My chest felt tight. On the left, a cell door had a scratch on the steel, like a letter that never finished. On the right, I heard water drip. Some of these men do not speak much, Mason said. Some speak all day. We listen, but we also do not answer. We let the rules do the talking. I wanted to ask more, but a loud thud echoed far ahead. Then came another. Then a short, sharp shout. Mason's radio popped. A voice said, "Stand by, stand by." He raised his hand for me to stop again. My heart sped up. The thud came once more, then died. For a long minute, nothing moved. When we started walking again, the air felt different, like a storm had passed but left its smell behind. We turned a corner and saw a small rec yard, a concrete box under the open sky. Through its mesh ceiling, I could see a strip of blue. This is where they touch the outside, Mason said. They can walk in circles. They can see the sun. Some men look up the whole time. Some never look up. As he said it, a door across the yard opened. A prisoner stepped into the concrete box. He was thin and stood very straight. His hair was cut short. He had the eyes of someone who counts every second. He looked up at the sky for exactly one breath. Then he put his hands behind his back and began to walk. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could feel the pattern in my own feet. Back in the corridor, Mason slowed. People outside think the danger here is fists, he said. They are wrong. The danger is time. Time can turn into sharp edges. So we round those edges with routine. He smiled a little. We also have steel. We reached the end of the range and stopped near a door with a thick slot. Mail, he said. We scan it. We read what the law allows. We let some through. We hold the rest. Words are tools here. We are careful with tools. He checked his watch. We will circle back. We started to walk when a tiny piece of paper slid out of the air vent near my shoe. It twirled once and landed like a leaf. I bent to pick it up, but Mason's hand caught my wrist. "Don't," he said quietly. He called it in. "Control, possible pass, B range, vent near 14. A second officer appeared like he had stepped out of the wall. He put on gloves, lifted the paper with a small stick, and slid it into a clear bag. He passed the bag to Mason. Mason read the note. His jaw tightened. He showed it to me for 1 second. "Tonight. B range. Lights." I looked at him. "What does it mean?" He shook his head. "Sometimes it means nothing. Sometimes it means everything." He handed the bag to the other officer. The other officer nodded and vanished again. We kept moving, slower now. I wrote 3 words in my notebook. "Who sent message?" Then I underlined them. Twice. We were almost back to the point where the morning had started to feel normal when the lights above us flickered. Then twice. The siren did not start, but the hallway hummed like a throat clearing before a shout. Mason lifted his radio. "Control, confirm power." Static answered. He tried again. "Control, this is Mason. Power check." More static. He looked at me, then at the door behind us, then at the ceiling camera. The lights went out. The hallway turned black as a cave. For 1 long second, there was no sound except our breathing. Then a steel door unlocked with a heavy click. The darkness in ADX Florence is not like normal darkness. It is thick, pressing, as if the concrete itself swallows light. My heart hammered as I stood frozen in the pitch-black hallway. Somewhere ahead, metal scraped against metal, the slow, dragging sound of a door moving without control. Officer Mason's hand pushed me back against the wall. "Stay still," he whispered, his voice steady but low. His radio was dead. The cameras above us were nothing but silent glass eyes. For a few seconds, the Alcatraz of the Rockies was blind. A sound cut through the silence. Footsteps. Slow. Even. Coming closer. Mason reached for his belt, but there was nothing to pull. At ADX, guards do not carry weapons inside the ranges. Too much risk of being overpowered. He only had his body, his training, and his calm. I held my breath as the footsteps stopped a few feet away. Then, without warning, the emergency lights blinked on, flooding the hall with a dim red glow. In the crimson light, I saw a figure inside a cell. The door was cracked open just an inch, not wide enough to step out, but enough to terrify. Through the slit, I caught the sharp glint of an eye staring straight at us. It was not the look of panic. It was not even the look of hope. It was a look of pure calculation. Mason raised his radio again, and this time it hissed to life. "Control to B range, report." Mason answered, "Door 23 compromised. Lock it now." There was a pause, then a heavy clang echoed through the hall. The door snapped shut. The eye vanished. The lights steadied again. My chest loosened, but Mason's face told me this was not over. "That," he said, "is why we never trust silence here." He motioned for us to move. We passed another row of cells, each one a world of stories locked behind steel. Mason lowered his voice. "You asked who's locked up in ADX Florence. You saw Cartel. You saw terror. But let me tell you what that really means." He stopped at a door. Inside, a man was doing sit-ups, counting in Spanish under his breath. This one was a drug lord. He sent tons of cocaine into American cities. He had soldiers. He had money. Now he has 23 hours a day in a box. Mason tapped his temple. But his mind? His mind still plots. We make sure the plotting stays in his head. In the next cell, a man with a long beard sat cross-legged, staring at a blank wall. "That one," Mason whispered, "was tied to a bombing. His name's known around the world. Out there, he wanted chaos. In here, he gets silence. That is the justice ADX delivers." I shivered. The silence in that room felt heavier than noise. We walked farther down. Mason pointed at another cell. That man was cartel muscle. Enforcer. People feared him. Now, the only one he can order around is himself. The prisoner stood at the door, watching us. His face was blank, unreadable. But his eyes burned like hot coals. The air in the corridor was heavy. It felt like the walls themselves remembered every crime, every scream, every deal that led these men here. My pencil scratched against my notebook as fast as my hand could move.